Let me look.
Hey, Sandy, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Does it sound better than last meeting? We have a new setup that had good reviews, but I just wanted to see what you thought.
Yeah, last time it was horrible.
Well, hopefully this time it's terrible. Not horrible. Hey, Grace.
Okay, so the SEL and the LMS, we have until 9/30/22.
That's the SEL and the LMS.
Yes, they're under the SRM.
And they told me on both of those, like, if it was approved under the blended learning, then we can basically just accept
Yeah,
it.
so I did get some money back from the
But we still have,
distance learning, so I have that left.
and I think I'm just gonna overorder tablets here at the end of the day. So the initial
So I
16 is tab.
So I know there's a few other little,
Things here, if the board approves that, any real things that come in as they throw in this, we would just pull
out of this. Jackie, you're able to hear us okay? Jackie, are you able to hear us?
Seeing up glasses is the
Okay.
worst, you know?
And then, Polly, are you able to hear us okay? And do you want to check if your audio's working?
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, there's Carrie.
Oh, brother. Put them on, they fly right back.
So we did make an adjustment here, or at least I did. It's not quite what you advocated for, where it's exactly what we did. With
Yep.
And then I'll talk to you about it tomorrow.
Hey, Carrie, you're able to hear us okay? All right. I think we're just waiting for Karen.
Do you have any visitors on there?
I don't. I sent a link to Christy Brinker.
Says you have 5 participants.
Right, so me, Andy, Carrie, Jackie, Polly.
Ah. It's my life story.
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to start with an amended agenda.
Yeah.
And then Carol was making it.
Yeah, I got that.
And then they this ownership from
Okay, and
we amended it prior to the board meeting, so it doesn't take that
and
much.
then you have this in your discussion. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Sean. I'm just a little behind, I'm gonna find it. Okay, this is not working. Till my glasses warm up. Board packet, there we are. Oh, it's just 5:30. Perfect.
Still Quinn. Well,
Is he coming?
said he was going to be here, just picking up his daughter.
Did you admit him?
Yes, Chris.
Christie.
Chris. Carol should be hopping up. And I kind of told her she's got a Mazda city council meeting. So I told her we just have her talk a little bit and
What?
then.
And right at the first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's let's call the meeting to order. My computer's still doing this circle thing, but let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I know that might be silly at home, but anyway, it's on our agenda. We will do it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Carol's not here yet.
She's not on. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll have Carol Morley, I say that right?
Yeah.
For presentation, which we will move up. There's just a couple changes to the agenda. One thing is under an action item, the school, my cycle's still turning here, but the school share, what's it called?
The leadership premium
The
plan.
leadership premium plan. And then also underneath
It'll be right
discussion items,
there.
there will
Actually,
be,
we just decided after visiting with Marcy, it'll be under board reports.
which one will be?
Your discussion
Oh.
about the convention.
Okay. All right, so that wasn't on the earlier agenda either, so under reports, we'll discuss whether or not, or how to do the voting for the convention. And I wanted to welcome everyone. I got a little bit ahead of myself. My computer is just still spinning away.
So we do want a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Yeah. Can you go back up, Marcy, just so I can see? Okay, good. Thank you. So the first thing we will need to do is to approve the amended agenda, and then we'll approve the consent agenda. So and we'll just do that. We'll do the amended agenda, and then we'll go to Carol, then we'll go back to consent agenda. So can I entertain a motion to approve the amended agenda with the 2 changes?
I move to approve the amended agenda with the 2 changes.
Thank you, Carrie. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? That was Polly seconding that. Any discussion? Seeing none. Is anyone opposed to the motion? Anyone abstain from the motion? Then the motion passes unanimous. Okay, we'd like to welcome Carol Morley here from the Public Health District. Thank you so much for taking time to talk to our board tonight, Carol. We really appreciate it. And we'll get you so you can move on to your next item in your long day.
So
Thank you for allowing me to join you all tonight. Just more about questions and answers than anything. I'm just, if I can answer anything, I've got a little bit of data that I can share with you, if that would be okay. Is it Madam Chair?
Mr. Chair, I guess.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, sir.
All right, I guess I'm supposed to put on my name, his, he,
Yeah.
they, you know.
Pronoun.
But
So Carol, thanks for joining. This is Sean. I'd be great just to kind of share a little snapshot of where you kind of think maybe the region is, and then also kind of more locally, even if it's not at like a city level, but like a county level, and what it is that we're kind of where we're at, I guess.
Great. Absolutely. Thank you, Sean. So if you've seen the numbers, we are climbing quite rapidly across the 5 counties. And we actually reached 3,358 today. We had 251 new cases since last Friday. So quite a significant increase actually for our 5 counties. Lewis County totally, since we started this in March of 2020, we started March 24th with our first case. Lewis County has had 113 cases throughout Lewis County. So those are from inception. If we look at just those that are active in Lewis County, I'm scrolling here my numbers, so sorry for my looking sideways here. active cases in Lewis County. Well, maybe my computer won't come up. But I also, we're looking at how we can look at this data more on a zip code basis. So when I ran the zip code just for Nez Perce today, Nez Perce, since we've started, you all went quite a long while. You are our last county. Lewis County was our last county to actually have cases in August. But Nez Perce has had 7 cases total since we've started. Only 7 in the zip code of Nez Perce County. I mean, of Nez Perce City. So of those 113 cases for the county, we consider 53 of them to be open and 57 of them to have been recovered. And as you know, there have been a couple deceased. Have we had deceased? Yes. But when we look at how many that we've seen in just the zip code area for Nez Perce, we've seen 4 of those in the last week. So interesting that you have only 7 cases and a little bit of an uptick right now, just with 4 cases recently. So not to be concerned that there's, 4 new cases. The others, 5 of those, 6 of your total have been since the month of October. 1 of them was in August. So we're looking at kind of staying consistent, a little bit of an uptick right now for your population base, but nothing, I don't think that we are thinking it's out of ordinary compared to the rest of the district. The rest of the district is growing quite rapidly, as you know, Nez Perce County having 1,300 cases, Idaho, Lake Tahoe having 1,100 cases. So it's all relative to our population sizes. We're watching really closely also how overwhelmed our hospitals might be. And at this point, the hospitals in our 5 counties are doing okay. They are still doing routine elective surgeries. And they have had some COVID cases. So of the hospitals that we have in our 5 counties, last week, I think we had an average of about 10 cases per day in the 5 hospitals. So not a whole lot, but enough that we know that it is affecting people to be in the hospitals as well. The reason we're concerned about hospital rates is because you and I might need this for a broken leg or a heart attack or somebody having a stroke or something else that is critically important, and we need to have hospital capacity so that we all can get there. Well, look at you go. Thanks. So if you haven't jumped out to our website, and that's where we're going here on the screen. Thanks, Sean. I could have shared it on my end, but thank you for doing that. So Little Lewis is up in the pink, that you can see that top bar right at the very top of there we go, right there, Lewis County, 113 of those cases that we've had. And then again, the data for broken out by zip code is not on this site yet. We're just trying to pull that where it's still confidential enough that we are not making sure that people can drill down and identify where people actually are living with this virus. So as we looked at this stage, at the very bottom, you'll also see what I was referring to as the hospitalizations. And that rate of 10.7, I think it is, per day, that's all for the 5 counties, not just for Lewis County. The middle bars are related to the length of time it takes us to get test results back. And that's actually going up a little. Most of our test results we got back today have been out 4 or 5 days as we've been waiting for those, meaning that a person gets tested, the test is sent away somewhere, the person might know, and then it's a few more days before it finds its way to public health because it's a reportable disease. So sometimes it's 4 or 5 days before we know that someone's tested positive. And then you do see that red spike right there at the very top. That's our numbers per 100,000 or per 10,000. So in Lewis County, we're actually looking to see that the little spike that you've had in the number of cases. So last week you had on average 3.7 cases per week. That's a little more than we like to see for the population in Lewis County. Again, small numbers, but based upon population, those are definitely higher than we would like. But when you look at other counties, again, they're in the same situations as you are. Our whole district right now is in the red. There's Clearwater. You can see Idaho County's in red for cases. So again, not alone in this, but LATOD hasn't. The LATOD numbers are truly related to the number of students that they're testing on campus. So right now they've been not testing quite as many, so their numbers continue to kind of hang in there really level. So with that, I'm going to stop chattering and see what questions I might answer for all of you.
What's the positive test rate across our district?
Our positivity rate, it's pretty high. So let me see, I have that right here as a matter of fact. Again, sorry for the shuffle of my paper. So the positivity rate is based upon the number of tests that are done, positive and negative, and the amount of those tests that are positive out of the total. So the positivity rate that we're seeing for our health district kind of ranges, but it had been close to 13 to 15%. And they like it to be 5% or under. That's the national standard for positivity rate. Again, we're not alone in the positivity rate. Sean, I don't know where that site is from. Do you know?
So this is, and you haven't seen this, Carol, but this is data from Lenny Bonner.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Kind of regarding in St. Mary's Hospital and Clearwater Valley Hospital there. This is the total positives that they're seeing in their hospitals. And then I just, since Ken brought it up, in the email from her, she said in the past 30 days, both CV, Clearwater Valley Hospital and St. Mary's have seen around a 20% positivity rate. So
part of it is when you test more, you'll find more. But most of our hospitals that are doing this testing, they're testing symptomatic almost only. A few contacts, but primarily the symptomatic out there. So I think that shows you the number of those coming in that truly do have signs and symptoms and are showing positive on test results. To have a 20% test rate is higher than, definitely higher than 5. So if you look way back in the beginning of those charts where they were little tiny ups and downs, that was, floating between 2 and 0 and 2 and 5%. And then now we have surges up 10 and then up to 20% last week.
I asked the question because sometimes it's hard to make sense of those positivity rates. Like the U of I testing is the most recent number, I think, was 2.5%, but they test, like 900 people to get that rate that low.
That is exactly right. And they are testing up in the top 700 to 900 kids a week. So when they're testing that many, we had an uptick for them. We had 36 positives this weekend from campus. But prior to that, we were in kind of a little lull for them, even though they continue to test. So you are definitely right on that positivity rate for Latah County. It's very low because of the volume that are being tested.
Can we make any conclusions about what we should be doing to affect any of this based on the statistics you've gathered so far?
I think I can share some anecdotal stories with you on some of the schools coming, especially out of Nez Perce County and Latah County with our highest numbers. We are seeing that Moscow School District, who of course is under a mask order by the city at this point, definitely has had much fewer cases than Nez Perce County, who hasn't been masking in the school and has had widespread community outbreaks. So, I mean, that has helped Moscow School District. They would tout that, and it's very obvious in that area. Nez Perce County, the Lewiston School District has now doing masks in most of the schools, and started it in the junior high a couple of weeks ago as just a pilot to see how it would go for 2 weeks to see if we could calm the spread down. And seems to be calming some, so that's a good thing. I think the school's doing a great job with social distancing and sanitation and masks at some point, and others. I think that what we're seeing from many of the other schools, it's not the kids that are getting this as much, it's the teachers.
Yeah.
And so the teachers are the ones that seem to be having a harder time attracting this virus and getting it. And then the schools are really having difficulty with subs and finding enough staff to keep classes going. So I think those are the big takeaways that we've seen from other schools that are in the midst of some of these outbreaks.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Carol. I know you're super busy, so I don't want to keep you too long. I don't know if there's one more question, maybe if anyone has one, or.
I have one more comment, Sean, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman. I think we are seeing most of the outbreaks, if they are children or students, have been related to sports teams. So just prepare for that, because as we get into winter sports, we will see more cases just because of the proximity with bus rides and basketball and other, indoor versus outdoor activities. So just as not a concern, just a comment, I think we all will see more cases as we get into basketball season, not just here, across the state.
Another reason that football's the best sport around.
And I don't know if you have wrestling in your school.
No,
We don't have wrestling.
We're safe there.
Thank goodness.
You are making my life so much easier on that note without having wrestling. I am most concerned about wrestling this winter. It is the most risky sport that we know of.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Carol. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you all for letting me jump in and join you tonight. Your school is doing a great job. Your leadership is very, very much active. We have frequent communication, and we're glad to be part of the team.
Thank you.
Thanks all. Have a great meeting.
Have a good night.
Thank you. I'm on to the Moscow City Council meeting.
All right.
That might be a little more exciting.
At least you don't have to drive there.
That's right, I don't. Zoom is wonderful. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. Oh no, public comment first.
We don't have any.
We have nobody signed up for public comment, so we'll move on. Next is consent agenda. You have in your packet the minutes of our last meeting, or it says September meeting. Let me look at that.
Okay.
Do I have the right thing open, or? Yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah, that's actually the October meeting. And then district financial reports, November bills, surplus property, and associated student body financial reports. Marcy is actually in the room tonight if you have any questions about bills or financial reports or anything else associated with the minutes. Open that up to the board to express those.
The surplus property, the iPads are very old iPads that we've refurbished and got back to operating order, but they're just not, they're operating systems ago that they can't be updated anymore. And so my thought is, as surplus property, to just set a price on them and first come, first served. Likely, I think $15 to $20 price is, they're all really old generation iPads, so it's fair. But
Not
it's-
board members, though.
Yeah, it's not like we're getting rid of technology that we desperately need. These were iPads that were out of service that have been brought back into at least get rid of them.
Great. Will you advertise those, or how will we get buyers for those?
I think we'll just put something on Facebook and in the Herald that they're
Oh, yeah,
available.
Facebook classifieds, you probably sell them in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on reports or minutes? Any changes to the minutes? If not, entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda. This is Polly.
Thank you, Polly. Do we have a second?
I'll second it, Carrie.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Anybody opposed to the motion? Any abstaining? That passes unanimous then. Thank you. We'll move into our agenda now and first talk about use of governor's coronavirus relief fund dollars. Got to be spent by December.
She has to have them submitted by December 11th for
Okay.
reimbursement. So, yeah, coming up. So if I can, I'll start kind of presenting. We had visited last month about just kind of some options. What I would propose is that we use the money primarily, it's approximately $50,000, as a one-time hazard pay / additional duty pay for the staff. That would include all regularly employed staff, bus drivers, cooks, janitors, teachers, aides, administration. Under that plan, we talked last month about kind of some different models. One, a flat amount per person based on their FTE. Another model kind of based off a percentage of their salary. In the end, after kind of looking at it and visiting, I think the most equitable kind of is to balance both of those arguments. And so what I would propose is that certified staff, which would include administration and certified teachers, would receive a $1,200. I don't want to use the word stipend, but additional duty pay / hazard pay. And then a kind of a progressive scale down from there. So $800 for aides. It's on this proposed sheet. $1,200 for full-time staff. $500 for bus drivers. $1,000 for aides, office professional, maintenance, and janitorial. And then $700 stipend for aides. So I think it kind of balances. Nobody would receive more than the full $1,200. Of course, there's other costs with the benefits that go with that. But that's what I would propose. Now that would take about, under this plan, about $38,000 out of that, $50,000. Which would leave us with a little bit of kind of slush. You got to remember that last month the board approved $5,000 for the full-time temporary sub. So you got that 12 minus approximately or 11, I guess, minus the 5 gives us about $6,000. My plan right now is to use about $3,000 of that for the UV lights, and I know probably stresses Marcia a little bit, but and then additional $3,000 just in this last month for kind of a burst of anything else that comes up that I could just be very flexible, whether that's air purifiers or, it would be a last call for if there's something we need and we don't know that any other stimulus money is coming, we have it. Of course, it has to be obligated by December 11th so that Marcy can request it. But we had visited already tonight about meeting weekly now to make sure that that money gets spent. Some of our accounts have already been tapped out. There's a few more that are still hanging out there. The blended learning still has a few more purchases that have been delayed because of back ordering. But again, those are obligated right now already, so we should be okay with those. But that's what I would propose for the board, and then open it up for discussion.
Thank you. Just a comment on top of that, not about the plan, but about your extra little slush fund deal. That's not a good word. Excess spending capacity. So I watched a video in the convention center today about a surface treatment that reduces or increases the efficacy of your disinfectants. And it was really interesting. I don't know how much it costs, but that would be an example of something unknown kind of technology I'd never heard about that we might take a look at. But anyway, open this up to the board. If you have questions or comments about the plan, could you put the plan back?
So this would just be with
Well, I've got it here too.
staff members and so the original plan was kind of based off of a percentage. The second part of the plan was based off of kind of an equal amount, the only differences are based on FTE. And the third one is this one, and it just kind of has a flat amount kind of by job description. So again, there'd be a certified staff level, office administrative maintenance janitorial level, and then an aide level, and then a bus driver level. So
That's kind of similar to the FTE thing, but a little bit tweaked. And can you describe the input that you gathered for this?
yeah, I've had regular conversations with the teachers, including the Teachers Association, to make sure that it's something that is agreeable to them. Limited feedback overall. I mean, I think most people are at this point would be grateful for something for the additional work that they're doing.
Okay,
Question for you, Sean. With this 5,000, we hired Kevin Carpenter, correct?
Correct.
He's not on this list. I don't think.
Correct.
Is he gonna have to be because he is an employee now and we're now deciding how to spend that money?
I don't know. My thought is that and probably not gonna add a whole bunch, but we could figure out where to place them, but as a full-time employee for this school year, that maybe we do.
Legally, possibly because we're spending the money after he's hired.
Yeah.
We can't single him out as not getting it.
I mean, I think the board could do whatever they wanted and would be okay legally as far as whether we pay that or not. Just maybe some guidance on that. I would recommend, after you say that, just including him. Probably because it's a sub position at like the aide level.
yeah, and it's kind of prorated a little bit towards the year that's gone by
Yeah.
somewhat. So I think that sounds like a good idea to include it at a level to be determined.
Other question I have with that position, that full-time sub, we kind of blindly threw 5,000 at it, not knowing when you'd get somebody hired. Is that money going to get spent covering him, or did we put too much, or should we use a little bit more, cover that position through the end of the year?
Can we keep that on the burner there, Quinn, because that's not pertinent to this particular benefit thing, okay? We can pull that back just a little bit, but we'll keep that, we can bring that.
Well, I was curious about it because that would take funds away from this or add funds to it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, let's just pass this and then we can talk about that. Anybody online have a question or comment about this plan?
No, I just say that I like the way that you've designed it, Sean, where it's more of a percentage based than an overall the same.
Sure.
Thank you, Polly.
So just for clarification on Kevin's, I mean, so for the months of November and December, it'll be about $6,000. So that'll go over, I guess. And then remember that, I mean, basically the general fund is on the hook at this point
After the first of the year.
for the remainder of the year. Yeah.
If there's nothing else, we need to,
Sean, I just correct,
Yeah.
make sure I'm understanding this right. You're looking at 38,771 going.
with benefits.
That's, well, actually probably another something we got to decide on Kevin, what his stipend will be.
Right. And we could certainly use that
And you have
extra money
approximately
right now.
45,000 left to spend.
No, so we have 50,000 total. Take out the 50,085, take out the 5,000 that you've set aside, that's 45, and then take out the 38,770.
So I mean, yeah, there's going to be 6,000-7,000
Yeah.
in your discretionary. fund.
And I think from the quote that I sent you, it's just a little over 3,000 plus some shipping for the, the UV lights.
Oh,
and
that
additional set of
3,000 is going
12.
to come out of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a level that we should be able to spend and usefully by the
Right.
deadline.
I think so. There's a few little small things. I mean, I know some of it's already been paid for, but I just envision as we continue to try to stay open, there might be a few more of those things where it's like, well, we need it and we don't have to take it from the general fund. We have that. Again, you don't want to go too much, but certainly with Kevin's salary, being at that point, you could tap into that overage there too. So I still feel like it's expendable. It's not like we're leaving too much of a bubble there that can't be spent.
Any other comments, questions? It's good discussion. If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve the plan for the coronavirus relief fund dollars?
I move to approve the plan for the coronavirus relief fund.
Thank you, Polly. Do you have a second?
I'll second Sandy.
Thank you, Sandy. Any discussion of the motion? If not, we'll vote. Is there anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody says abstain? I want to say abstain in the worst way. Abstain from the motion? Thank you. If not, then the motion passes unanimously. I appreciate your work, Mr. Teets, on that. And I like it. It looks good. Everyone likes it, so they all voted for it. Okay.
Now that we just voted for it, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Coaches aren't on there.
Yeah, and I just think there's too much up in the air for whether it was fall or winter to know what's going to happen with the
Right.
season. Last year, as an example, we basically had just got the season started, no competitions, and then the spring sports got canceled. So we ended up paying coaches half of their rate. Well, it certainly would be a good part of the discussion. I just think
Too
it's
much to know one way or the
too
other.
hard.
Yep.
To know.
Some of them are on there in their school role anyway.
Yeah.
Not all of them.
Well, actually,
Okay,
what made me think of it was should I have abstained from that last vote or stayed out of it because my mom's on the list?
You may want to formally. We probably should.
I don't think, legally,
You don't have,
you
You're
don't
okay.
have to because
You're right.
I mean, it's unanimous. I mean, it wasn't a,
it's just a spouse relation that you
Okay.
have
She's not
to,
living in the same household as you.
No.
But legally, it's just a spouse.
no, okay.
now if we happen to fire your mom, you might want. Not that that's gonna happen, Raylene. Okay. Okay, the next item is blended learning contracts.
So on the amended, I put leadership.
Oh, yeah,
premium
okay, the
first, so
leadership position. I'm sorry,
It's okay.
I didn't get
It'll-
that.
Be fairly quick, I think. Generally with the leadership premium plan, this should come out in August. It did last year and be approved this year. It did not happen, perhaps because of other distractions. But this was negotiated last year that and planned and budgeted for in our budget. The leadership premium plan that this is not state money. It's approximately $17,000, but it was negotiated to leave it in. And then we're, hopefully the state next year would continue this program as funds, if the economy continues to grow like it has, but if not, this would just go by the wayside. Because of that, there's some flexibility. So as we were developing this plan and I was getting insight from the teachers to develop this plan, we used to not be able to go below a full share because the state had laws about how little, there was a minimum to how much you could pay somebody. Because it's our own plan this year, you'll notice that, there's a few positions that are actually slightly below. That's mostly because through discussions, we wanted to shift some of the dollars around, approximately $1,000 a share is what a teacher gets, based on the amount of workload that these particular positions do. So one nice thing about this and why I've advocated for them at the state level is that this is a board approved plan as kind of administered by the superintendent, but this allows a district to not be tied down with a whole bunch of other rules or obligations and to get dollars to staff who are doing extra leadership activities above and beyond that aren't a part of their everyday contract. And so most of these positions remain the same as what we've had. There's a few small shifts that I want to make you aware of. All of this top section remains the same. We actually increased the elementary organizational support leader, kind of like a head teacher type position. We decreased this position that was called the tech integration coach, just to kind of balance. We increased technology support significantly, just especially in this COVID environment, that it's another staff member that can potentially really provide a lot of extra help. These stayed the same. This was slightly reduced, our INISAT assessment assistant. That's someone who helps kind of set up the test, not really looking at any data. And then these stayed the same. The other pieces that we added are a couple of positions, one to kind of manage in COVID specifically, that, and actually, I'm just thinking out loud, Marcy, if push comes to shove, we could use the governor's money to like obligate like a certain percentage of this. So, because it's COVID related. Yeah, you're right. We don't pay it out till June. Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about it. That's why I shouldn't think on the fly. And then COVID planning assistance also is a position where a staff member could attend a regular meeting with Jackie and myself as we continue to navigate this. Maybe one more head in the room to help us make good decisions. The other ones kind of stay the same. So this I consulted with the elementary teachers individually to talk about how the changes they would like to see, and then also with the secondary teachers. I've also consulted with Jackie at length. I know people are kind of anxious to get this done. Like I said, normally it should be done in August, but these stipends get paid out at the end of the year upon completion of service. So Marcy generally pays them out in the June contract. And again, it's just following along with basically the state leadership premium plan, which just isn't being funded this year. So I will open it up for discussion or questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Do we have anybody have a question or comment on the plan? I have a couple.
Yeah.
Is this, have you emailed this or is it because it's not in this regular
I emailed it out today.
Yes. Huh. Oh, I see. I'm not all the way to the top.
Right.
No,
I don't want to do that.
I said, yeah, I got it.
oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. Any question? Oh, so when you said negotiated, so do you mean in contract in master contract?
So it's not a part of our master contract. When we approved negotiations last March or April, it was signed as an extra MOU, I guess, that we would that the district would continue it for this year at the district's cost, as opposed to the state dollars that came in.
So the adjustments on the shares, the tweaking you've done here, still the same bottom line then?
Same bottom line.
Okay.
Yep, no adjustment to that. So it's really just a share of whatever the whole pot is, which would be the exact same dollar amount that the state paid us last year. That would just be divvied up by share.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, comments? I'm sorry, I didn't, I spent quite a bit of time this morning in region meeting and everything, and I never got back to my email later. How do you decide like the COVID planning, say, for instance, some of these that's a new.
So the way, like with the leadership premium dollars, there'll be a job description for it. We always have, it's one of the ways that it's very flexible. There are no property rights to these positions, any of these positions. If you had them last year, there's no guarantee that you'll have them again. Staff will have to submit a very brief application saying why they're interested and what experience they would have. And then Jackie and myself have the flexibility to make these determinations. That's the way the leadership money has always worked, that those positions, once the plan is approved, can be at an administrative level and can go to where the need is.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes it's the same person, but again, there's no guarantee, and the staff clearly understands that each one is a one-time work for a year.
I'd like to request that if you could report back at the end of the school year, you know, just kind of an outcome results type of thing on these various things.
Yeah.
So then we'd be more in tune and ready to go for if we decide to continue it, or if the state does appropriate money to continue these kinds of things next year. We could still continue it, but the state doesn't, if we think it's beneficial for our district. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we need a motion to approve the plan.
I move to approve the leadership premium plan.
Thank you, Quinn moved. Do you have a second?
I'll second it, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. We have a motion to approve the leadership premium plan. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody abstaining from the motion? Then the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks for your work on that. That looks good. Next up is personnel recommendations. We just had a few hirings, it seems like.
Oh, yeah, we've got the blended learning contracts.
Oh, crumb.
These were our
Sorry about that.
part of our blended learning application. There's two people, Lynn Wessels and Malia McCauley, who's a professor down at LCSC. Lynn Wessels, you'll recognize, was a long time, 30+ year second, fifth kindergarten teacher at Nespers. Both of these ladies are providing professional development opportunities. Even just today, Lynn is already working and has emailed staff about some new apps and technology. So this is straight out of the blended learning. Both of these contracts, we are modeling them off of how our school nurse is paid and our school psychologist. So it's a set dollar amount per hour that they log and keep track of. And then it is paid out as they do the work. And that'll be paid straight out of the blended learning money. The contract is also just capped for a total shall not exceed 100 hours in this case. So up to $3,000 in compensation for the time served. So.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about the proposed contract for blended learning? Is the other person is she related to the McCauleys from Nespers?
She's McCauley from Grangeville. She taught in Grangeville for a long time before retiring and
okay.
becoming a professor at LCS.
I was just curious. If there aren't none, if there are no questions, we could entertain a motion to approve this blended learning contract. Or do you need more time to review it, or any more questions? That's fine as well.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the blended learning contract.
Thank you, Sandy. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
That was Polly.
Yep.
Thank you, Polly. We have a motion and a second to approve that blended learning contract. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll vote then. Is there anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody abstaining from the motion? The motion is approved then. Now I'm back on track on the agenda, I believe, with personnel recommendations. We have two hirings to approve or consider. Linda Bowles for part-time literacy paraprofessional and Kevin Carpenter for full-time secondary substitute teacher.
So just really quick, I highly recommend both. They've actually both started. Linda's position is part of the literacy dollars that come directly from the state. It's a flow through our plan. The vast majority of that money that comes from the state for literacy is we designate towards this part-time position. She's set up in the library and is working one-on-one with kids on literacy. It's in addition to the work that Marietta does with the Title I kids. So this is any kid that does not score proficient can receive these extra services. So really just a hyper focus putting people in with those kids that need that extra help in terms of literacy. And then Kevin, you're all aware of.
Yeah, those are good hires. Any comments or questions on those? If not, we entertain a motion to approve hirings.
I'll approve the hirings. Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Quinn seconded that. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Is there anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody abstaining from the motion? Then that's unanimous. And our next item, thank you very much. Our next item is changes or amendments, which we've already had some, but to talk about that, about our school reopening operations plan. Our chart that we've nearly memorized after all these times of looking at.
So just for an update from me, over the last, we made some changes at the last board meeting, including requiring masks in cases where 6 feet of distance can't be maintained. I think it's worthy now, so we're operating in yellow, minimal to moderate spread. Just given, the recent, what seems to be a real growing trend in our community. I just thought I'd kind of walk through the board what orange and red look like. And to make sure, I mean, it's one thing to come up with a plan in August, but it really, this whole plan throughout the year is going to take some constant looking at to see what makes sense. So some things that didn't, maybe made sense in August before we had a lot of cases might not make sense anymore. One of my biggest concerns remains, and I thought about it early on, is substitute teachers. When staff members are either required to isolate at home because they tested positive, or when staff members have to quarantine because they've been exposed. And quarantine is up to 14 days. Even with Kevin as a full-time sub, I sent out an email this weekend to staff saying, like, we are going to have to look at, even personal leave or other things like today. I know Jackie and this week is scrambling with some quarantines and isolations that we have to try and find people. When we had our first second staff member who tested positive, it involved classrooms. That triggered a loss of 4 substitute teachers who either have requested to temporarily be taken off the list or kind of more long-term for this year be taken off the list. That it's put us in a real tight and precarious position. My guess is we're more likely to close the school down because we don't have the adults to staff this building than we are because of like Carol mentioned, with student cases. My guess is that it will probably be adult driven as opposed to kid driven. So just that's just the reality. It really is.
Can I ask a question on that? So when a teacher is quarantined,
yeah,
could they still then teach remotely?
Yep.
To an in-person class and such?
Yep. So educationally, what we've already done once and we're actively doing now is that if a teacher is well enough to teach in that either quarantine or isolation, that they are leading the class from home, it still requires an adult body in the room.
Yeah.
Which maybe requires a different skill set than, a sub where the teacher's completely gone. But 14 days is a long time.
Yeah.
And it's working. We're making it work the best we can in this environment. But it is a challenge. And when you have, a limited number of subs and one gets locked up for 2 weeks in one specific room, it doesn't take too long before you don't have the personnel to cover it. So I guess I thought I'd just kind of go through and for consideration for the board. Now, right now we're in yellow and I think we continue to operate effectively. I think also because of the cases and some rumors around town, we saw increased absenteeism today from students, probably in the 20% range. That'll come back down, I think. Hopefully cases come back down, but just continued thought about, Carol talked about face masks, and the Moscow School District is requiring face masks at all times in buildings, similar to, I think, McCall and Boise. That means there's no taking it off, even if 6 feet can be maintained.
Lewiston has not done that. And actually for the longest time was just the mask recommended. We've been on top of that. I think our kids are following the rules and the protocols, but that's something to consider. Right now, what we have written into Orange is that depending on the current circumstances, the superintendent may require, or school board may require masks for staff and students at all times when indoors. So that's something to consider, and I'd love to hear, if the board is happy with where we're at with yellow and then also with orange, or if the board would like to strengthen it, and if we move to orange, that masks would be required indoors at all times. With all of these things, I'd like to remind, I just saw the picture last night again. I haven't seen it for a while. It's really they call it the Swiss cheese model of fighting this virus. And that is that, masks are not perfect. They have a hole in them, and the virus can get through, but they help. The scientific evidence says they help significantly. Physical distancing is not perfect. The virus can travel more than 6 feet, but it helps. The science has demonstrated that. Hand sanitizing is great. Not touching your face is great, but it's not perfect. Kids don't do a perfect job of washing their hands or hand sanitizing. The kids will touch their face even if we're not telling them, but it helps. And so when you stack up, you're trying to blast something through and you stack up all these Swiss cheeses, eventually you start to really create meaningful protection, even if none of them by themselves are 100% effective, and some are less effective than others. But just trying, to do that. At this point, we've had we've had multiple staff members who have tested positive. By all conversations with Carol and with any contact tracing, there is zero belief that spread of COVID is happening inside of this school building. I continue to believe that the steps that we're taking as a school district are making it safer. And I think you could make an argument that it's making it safer for our community for kids to be here and following the protocols. One thing I think is warrants or worthy of discussion with the board about whether or not those protocols could be tightened up, or even the opposite direction, especially as the year goes by. But I do think they're good protocols and they're helping. There are a few places where I continue to see, there's risk. There's still risk outside. We do not require masks at recess. And while outside is significantly safer, physical distancing at recess is impossible unless we all just wanted to make them line up and walk around the track 6 feet apart from each other. So that's a risk. The cafeteria continues to be a risk that is just really hard to manage. I mean, we've done our best to get spacing, but barring, offering lunch from the time the kids get here until about they leave, that's very tough. We'll continue to look at it. So I don't know. I mean, would the board, want to discuss or look at the idea that maybe in Orange, it wouldn't be optional, that we would require masks at all times inside. Any mask breaks would have to take place outdoors. Right now, it's just an option in that plan. As I continue to scroll down and look at Orange, if we were to move to Orange, we would eliminate visitors, basically. I mean, there's very few essential visitors. Essential visitors might be people dropping off food for the food program, the UPS guy, but other visitors, people who just come in to speak to kids, they're required to wear masks right now, but they are allowed with administrative approval right now. Other changes, I think this is going on. We're disinfecting, we're not sharing already. Another one to note in Orange and for the board to be aware of, because this has ramifications too, is to close campus during lunch for the high school students. Again, if the community becomes a significantly higher risk, then the idea is that closing campus would help with that spread. But that has the potential to, upset people and
Positive to that, if you have to close the campus,
is
is that all kids are getting free lunch.
Correct.
The whole school year.
Yep.
It wouldn't be a financial hardship.
there's not a financial, matter of fact, it would be a benefit to a lot of kids and families. I also have in the plan that homerooms would be established during lunch to kind of just keep the grade levels together in the secondary building.
Can you hang on just before you
Yep,
go on?
yep.
Did you guys hear what Marcy said about the school lunch? I wasn't sure if it carried. Carrie, could you hear that?
Yeah, I get the gist of it, that it's financially beneficial for the school and it's not going to be a burden on the kids.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check. Go
Okay.
ahead.
As I continue to scroll down, that's testing. There are possibilities out there for regular testing that the public health district has actually free testing right now, in that they've distributed out, and some of our staff members have accessed that already. So if you're a staff member of a public school, you can access that. There are also codes that I have for staff members for the Albertsons PCR test, which takes a couple of days to get back, but that is free if they can get to Albertsons, and I provide them with the code. So like staffing considerations is that when we move to Orange, that staff would be allowed to work from home if they are, if that is conducive to their job. Obviously, for most of our staff, the vast majority, that's not a possibility. Instructionally, when we move to Orange, according to the plan, is when we will provide a full live stream of the class. We're doing that now for students who are quarantined or are ill and feel like it's safest to be home. There's that shift to where you're balancing. There's families that are, I'm not knocking anyone. I'm fully convinced there's families that even in the largest of outbreaks in this school would still want their kids here. And then there's families that are much more protective, and especially like even today with some rumors or news of cases that really pull back and are like, out, you're coming out. We have to try to continue to provide education for them all. I'm worried about our staff, and I think, Jackie and I have had conversations about this too. And Jackie, you can add anything if you want, but I'm worried about our staff getting burnt out. It is hard work, and it's hard work when you've got kids quarantining at home and you're trying to teach an online class and you're teaching a section to in-person kids. It's hard to balance it and feel, at least like as a teacher, that you're doing a good job. And so that adds a constant level of stress as we try to balance this. Jackie, do you have anything you want to add there?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Not really. I guess I would just echo what you had just said. We check on them every day. We've covered classes when they've had to do some extra duties. I know Sean and I are planning on stepping in and subbing. We have done a little bit of that already. As the year goes on, I think it's going to cause a lot more need for that, especially with our decreased sub list. So the stress is concerning.
And then, so there's a couple of cases there for as far as what short-term closures might look like. Again, I think the primary thing that I'm looking for, if you go back to the beginning of this plan, there's two basic things that we set as goals. One is that kids need to be in person for learning. I think we learned it from this spring. Kids need to be in person for learning as much as possible. There are real short-term and long-term ramifications in terms of mental health, in terms of academic health, and just overall long-term that are impacted by closing the building to just online only. And then balancing that with the second, I would call them co-equal, and that is the focus is to keep our community, our staff, and our students safe. from this virus. It's a real virus. It is very serious, and it is growing rapidly in our region. We're seeing that beginning of that exponential curve. And so as a superintendent and as a board, I think, we have to continue to go back to those things. As we've navigated it, I kind of think we've had it a little easier because a lot of these things that we do are easy when the community rate of COVID is low. We can, I don't want to use the term get away, but basically we can get away with some of these things because there's just not a high prevalence of the virus. As the prevalence of the virus increases, it makes it increasingly difficult for these things to work. And I do think it warrants a step up. So things that we got away with in August or September, early on in September, you have to look and say, is that really still feasible given it's just a math thing, just given the sheer chances that someone with COVID is going to come into this building, which has obviously happened at this point. But so we just have to continue to balance that, keeping kids in person as much as possible and keeping our community safe. I am convinced that the steps that we're doing here and having kids in person I do believe helps keep our community safe. But it's hard and it's stressful for staff, especially, and kind of managing the substitute situation as well. I don't know that these are, essential. They're kind of broader and more vague, but just student social and emotional health. One thing, like for example, this has phased out the use of salad bar options. I think we made some quick adjustments to our salad bar, and all of those things are self-serve. And Jenny has done a great job with just little plastic containers. They can pick up their salad. It's no touch, no contact kind of stuff. I would say that would be striked out. But again, this part, moving into orange, reducing seating capacity at each table by 75% means at the very least, we'll be serving 4 different lunch periods. That is a logistical nightmare. That being said, it's probably the right thing to do and to figure out how to do that. Just because it's a fairly high risk. It's the one time that kids are together that you can't wear a mask eating your sandwich. And then student transportation will just continue on. And then sports, which is the other elephant in the room, how we manage that. But we just continue to follow IHSA guidelines. Just to make you, all the board members, aware, I served on the basketball reopening committee for the IHSAA. That committee made the decision to continue to start basketball on time in the state of Idaho. There are some leagues, like in the Treasure Valley, that have postponed for 2 weeks. But we are currently practicing girls basketball right now. The governor's guidelines, or his partial rollback to stage 3, has meant that only 50 people can be allowed in our gym to watch a game. The Region 2 Border Control and the White Pine League Activities Association has decided that the best way to meet that 50 mark is for schools to allow 25 home fans and 25 away fans. Our AD is at a meeting tomorrow to come up with a system to do that. The system that I propose and am advocating for is one in which every player on a specific team, so all the way down to like girls JV, would get 2 tickets that would be an admittance pass. And you'd have to have it. It'd be like college club. It's a girls JV, Nez Perce. You'd have to have that to get in. If we were playing Kendrick, then they'd have to have a girls JV Kendrick pass to get in, and up to just 25 people on each side. So it severely limits anybody, probably other than parents, from watching the games at this point. And not a lot of flexibility on that. That is, that's the governor's order. Any gatherings of over 50. there were serious conversations about just not having fans at all. And certainly boards are within their power of saying that too, and just letting the kids play. But at this point, we're practicing, we're moving on with sports, and that 50 people to meet the governor's guidelines is what we're going with. We just continue to communicate out as best possible. Music, again, a high-risk activity would be we would stop singing because it's the highest risk. Right now, they wear masks and they're spaced out when they're singing. But those would be in those cases. And then managing staff quarantine. So I'll quit talking and let the board discuss, or would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you. Open this up for board members. I'd like to just make one comment about, so moving between yellow and orange, I think my personal feeling is that we've been over this enough and we're getting in the groove enough to be able to say, okay, there's certain things that make a lot of sense in orange that, for instance, if we're contained, if we're not having spread within our schools, then there's some things that don't make too much sense in orange. Like, you know, the 100% masking all the time, to me, if it's not in spreading in school, then what we're doing is adequate in school. But if we have more in the community, then maybe some changes as far as closed campus or lunchroom changes, those kinds of things do make sense. So I think I'm just saying that I support the administration's efforts to identify things in category 3 that keep us in category 2, if that makes sense. Board members, do you have opinions or comments or questions for Mr. Teagues? Or Jackie, if you have something to add as well.
No, I think that makes sense, Ken, what you're saying. I was thinking the same thing. If we have 0 spread in school right now, we want to keep it that way, but do we need to go to extreme measures in all the categories? Maybe not. But where you do see it a bigger risk, like with the lunchroom, maybe make some changes there. I don't know, Sean, what would a realistic spread within school be where we're not even debating this? We're just like, makes total sense to go to orange completely.
Yeah, it's a good question, and we're just kind of, we're flying by the seat of our pants trying to figure out what that is. In this last case of batches, and I've had conversations with parents that are very concerned, but it is abundantly clear, I think, from all of my time and experience that, and then talking to the public health district, that these cases that we've had more recently are not driven at all by school protocols or practices are not in. That doesn't mean that people weren't here with the virus and being infected, but that the protocols that we have in place, we're still a little bit in that window though of seeing whether or not the cases that we had brought in from the outside are going to generate new cases. And so, it's one of the problems with this virus is you're always working, 2, 3, 4, 5 days behind what the actual status is right now. The cases today don't generate hospitalizations until a week or 2 weeks from now. Hospitalizations don't generate deaths until a week after that. And so it really is, it's hard to tell. So while the cases that came in weren't because of school operations, that does not mean that they might not generate future ones. Mm-hmm. And again, it's just kind of like an overall risk model. So I know in industry, when I used to work in a wood mill, it was like, the saying was, close calls don't mean you were lucky or did something good. All a close call is an accident that was waiting to happen. And so we want to avoid, in that interest of safety, close calls and try and stay ahead of it and be proactive. I think the board was very proactive in deciding to move to yellow. Even though the region as a whole kind of was in green, or Lewis County, I think it was a smart and proactive and a meaningful change to move into yellow. You can't always stay ahead of it. I can look back in retrospect and say that. When is the time to make this move? Certainly if we see in-school spread, which could take a week or two to develop, where we know that it's probably being transmitted in school, that would be a time to shift and shift as soon as we can. I don't know, that's not a great answer, but.
Well, and I mean, the whole anxiety and fear level of staff too. I mean, now that they've seen people actually get it, you know, they've got to be wondering and thinking, and that does raise the anxiety level. So, I mean, what kind of input are you getting from teachers? I mean, are you getting any about them wanting to get more strict, I guess?
Yeah. I don't know, Jackie, do you have anything to add there?
Well, I think in response to Carrie's question, I think it's the goal of every teacher to have those kids in front of them, whether they teach kindergarten or 12th grade, it really doesn't matter. They did not feel that they impacted kids very successfully, even though probably more so than many schools around us. It was difficult, and especially for your beginning readers, but just as much for the high school population and junior high who had some extra stress themselves. And that's kind of hard to remedy. Sometimes it's hard to identify when you're sitting across on a computer screen. It's just a whole different, none of us have been in that environment before. I think there are things like Sean was saying, from the yellow to the orange, that we can make little tweaks at lunchtime and seating to help out, to keep that from spreading. I think when teachers are wondering where we don't know, what they're doing after school, and sometimes that's a fear, and we want to make sure kids are safe, but we also know they have their private lives, and we have to respect that as well. So it's trying to find that balance between what are they going to bring back into the school with all this work. That's a real frustration for some teachers, but the bottom line is they want them in front of them. They want them in the classroom for sure. It's not like they're afraid to come to work at all. I think that's
Carrie, I don't sense like a groundswell of teachers who are saying like, we got to shut it down. Teachers still continue to believe in the in-person and moving. If I would say one thing, if there's somebody who's either, watching this board meeting now or watches it later on the YouTube page, it's like, I would plead to our public that it is certainly true. I can't force anybody to do anything outside of these buildings, but that, choices that the community makes that are completely outside of our control, that drive spread, increase risk for our school and our kids, and at the end of the day, that increases the chances that we're going to have to move to online. So I would plead with anybody listening to please, make the choices that you need to. This virus is here in the community. It's a serious virus. There is hope. Just today, the first vaccine study said 90% efficiency. That's amazing. That will be game changing, and life can, as this continues, these scientists are doing great work, can return to normal. But now is not the time, right as we're hitting the steep part of the exponential curve, to let a guard down, because that's coming. I mean, now is the time to really focus. Now that we can kind of see there might be a light there, now's the time to focus and say, is it really worth it to go to that event? Small family events sometimes are driving this spread. Small gatherings where people aren't wearing masks and aren't social distancing, and you feel so safe with your friends and your family. But those are where cases happening. Also, whether it's going to the bar, all these things are risks that ultimately drive the risk for our school as well. So the best bet that we have to stay in school is to get cases down for our community overall.
I wanted to address the movement from category 2 to 3.
Mhm.
I know that across the state, I've talked to a couple board members from other districts who, are uncomfortable with that taking place from administration without previous votes of the board. I'm not one of them, but there's board members have been put on the hot seat as well, including some recalls around the state. I just feel like, movements that need to take place between category 2, 3, or 3 and 1, 4, wherever we're at, I think they're best done administratively, in communication with the board. But I personally don't feel like that we get to prove everything, before it's done, because on the ground, I'm real comfortable with the administration making those decisions, but, in communication with the board. I know that this has been talked about a lot on different boards around the state, because all of a sudden board members are in the public eye a lot more than they were because of the pandemic.
Which is one reason I think it's incredibly important. I agree with Ken as a superintendent, and I would not want to work where it's somewhere that it's like the board would have to move categories every time, because I think you have to be flexible and situations change fast. With that said, the board, absolutely, this is a board document. This is not a superintendent document, and ultimately it's the board members that are kind of held responsible, and it's you guys that are going to hear from the community. So and that's why it's so important, like when you're seeing the red and the orange, to say, okay, so I know as a board member that this could shift, like things could change. I better be ready and knowledgeable about what an orange means, so that when that shift happens, I can have that conversation and I'm aware of what it means. And then certainly at any point in this plan, if the board wants to get together, whether it's the next day or 2 weeks from now or at a regular board meeting, and I'm not proposing we go to orange tonight, but whenever it is, that board can have you guys can meet as a board and decide to either kind of roll it back or affirm it. So I do think it's important. I do think where boards could get caught is if you don't know what's in category 3, and then all of a sudden I, as a superintendent, say, hey, we're in category 3. Done. Well, now you're stuck defending a technically board approved plan that you don't have any overall awareness of what that means. So I would still advocate for that model of allowing the flexibility of an administrator. I know Lewiston actually passed a resolution to specifically allow the superintendent to kind of make those decisions after not originally.
Well, I think that we don't have it memorized, but we certainly are familiar with categories 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I appreciate that. And I think, if it's close to a board meeting, I last time we changed, it was with a week from a board meeting, and I was comfortable with that. If it's 3 weeks from a board meeting, we should probably have a board meeting, and we can do this on Zoom, so it's not undue on everybody. But if we're going to have a major change, we should have a board meeting within, I personally think, like a week, in order to make sure that everyone's on board and understands it and can provide, answer questions of constituents. And board members, do you have comments or questions? Other comments and questions?
I would say, as far as, obviously I'd like to stay in category 2 right now, but I'm not against pulling some elements from category 3, whether it be closing campus, changing your lunchroom schedule, and still keeping us in 2, but possibly, depending on what happens in the community, modifying things kind of in essence on the fly, with where we can stay in 2 if we don't have spread in school.
And certainly this is an action item. So if there were specific things as we went through category 3, and this is a living document, that the board felt like any board member
could motion to move a certain piece. What I would propose would maybe rather than moving to category 3, if there was something that made sense right now, we could do that, or, you know, laying it out that, I mean, I think this document gives the superintendent enough authority that if something were to come up, and I'm just trying to think of an example, maybe it's this reduced seating. Maybe I want to implement that, but I think it gives me enough authority to do that. It does also open all of us up to, well, okay, now Superintendent Tiggs is just like making stuff up. And that wasn't the approved board policy. Not that the board couldn't go back and change that, but if there were specific best practices that the board felt might be best to move into that yellow category. I know the way this goes, sometimes you end up you start with 3 categories and then we went to 4. And it's like, well, what about a, chartreuse right in between here or something like that? And we can add a few things. But I'm open to whatever. I don't even know what color chartreuse is.
Well, to me, after reviewing it, the 2 things that jump out at me are managing the lunchroom, and a part of that is our open campus policy for lunches. Both those things seem to be higher risk of all the things you covered here. And I'm just one
So
board
good.
member.
Trying to think something like that. Could we move those under yellow stage as optional and leave them as when if you go to orange, then
That could be done.
they're no longer optional.
That's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
So to add in the language that, especially around the lunch, I don't know where I'm at on this document, but that it would be optional for the superintendent to close the campus and to reduce seating to 75%.
Reduce seating and change lunch times.
Yeah. There's weird things with like closed campus because I do think, I know there's kids that go to the store. There's also kids that live in town that go home. And is that really, so now you got to think like you're crowding people into the cafeteria. If kids go home, it actually helps with the crowding. Whereas if they go to the store, but then how do you kind of manage that? And
How do you manage where they go once they leave campus?
you don't.
Yeah.
But so in some ways it has reverse implications. Is all of a sudden, instead of right now in our lunchroom for the high school kids, there's maybe 10 or 15 kids. Now you're like, well, all 40 of them have to fit in. But
Well, there's a lot more we can't manage off campus than on campus, for sure.
yeah.
And but I think that's a great idea. If the board agreed to move those items into yellow, optional in yellow, then we wouldn't have to revisit that, but it would be an additional tool in yellow. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's kind of what I'm
Quinn?
thinking. And that's something that way we wouldn't have to have an emergency meeting or something when.
Those might be the most prominent next steps we would have to take.
Without a full shift.
Yeah.
Orange. Yep. Okay.
That something requires a motion then?
It's this board approved document, so I would
Yeah.
recommend that it is motioned and voted on to, and the language could just be take the existing language in orange regarding cafeteria spacing and open campus and move it to as optional language in yellow.
So I move to add as optional under yellow category, lunchroom seating capacity and times and open campus rules.
Thank you, Quinn. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
That's Polly. Okay, we have a motion, a second, to add as optional in category 2, seating in the lunchroom and lunchroom shifts, adjusting those and lunchroom or campus opening or closing during the lunch hour. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote. Anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody abstaining from the motion? Then that motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Teagues, and I don't know whether to keep my fingers crossed or pray harder or what, but everybody keep doing the right thing, I guess. That's keep doing the right thing and we'll get through this. Okay, we're on to policy updates. It's the second reading. We've had a chance to view these and we've had the adjustments made for our particular district. Any questions or Mr. Teagues, or any questions or comments you want to make about any of these policies under consideration? I don't think we need to review them. We've been through them already. Unless you have questions about any particular of the policies. At least there are just updates and they're not a whole chapter in the book. If you don't, we could just consider these policies in total and be happy to entertain a motion to approve them unless you have comments, changes, or questions.
I will move to approve the policy updates.
Thank you, Quinn. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. That's Carrie for the second. Any discussion of the policy, or excuse me, the motion? Hearing none, then we'll vote. Anybody opposed to the motion? Anybody abstaining from the motion? And that passes unanimously. That's our last action item. Now we're on to the mascot committee update.
So I'll provide a little. Sandy, you were there too if you want to add anything, but we met again a couple of weeks ago. And we had a list of 31 that the committee did a great job, had some really good conversations and narrowed down through a couple of voting processes on the committee. After reviewing the data that was, we gathered polling data from elementary students and secondary students and staff, and from Facebook fans and from people who read the Herald. So we had 5 different surveys out there, and we reviewed all of the data. There was kind of a clear, probably overall favorite, and then a list of about maybe 6 or 7 mascots that kind of made that second tier. We were careful not to just adopt one because this process was to take a big group down to 4. And then right now we're in the process of reaching out to vendors to see what those mascots might look like. So the 4 mascots that the committee has narrowed it down to are the Cougars, the Nez Perce Cougars, the Nez Perce Bobcats, the Nez Perce Blue Jays, and the Nez Perce Nighthawks. Those are the 4 mascots. Since then, we've reached out to all students and then also to all of our Facebook fans to provide a poem, a written piece, or a drawn image of what they kind of view that mascot to be like, along with reaching out to vendors. That on Friday last week, that window closed. So we have lots of submissions that I'm just kind of compiling together for the committee to look at. My intention is before the December board meeting, is to meet with that committee one more time. And this process is so that the committee, which has 2 board members on it, is designed so that the committee would make a recommendation to the board on a mascot the next time they meet, on the mascot that they would like to see. Now, the final authority is gonna fall with the board, and my intention is that at the December board meeting, that the board would select a mascot. I guess there's definitely no legal requirement that you'd have to even select from the 4 or the 31 or whatever, but I certainly wouldn't want to face the mutiny if people felt like the board just decided on their own after all that process. But so they will make a recommendation, and then the board will make that final decision next month. Kind of an exciting time.
Thank you. It's pretty exciting. So Quinn and Sandy are on the
Yeah.
committee. Do you have comments, Quinn or Sandy? Okay, then I think you've covered it. I think it's a great list. 2 of my favorites are on the list, but we'll see what happens. Cougars is definitely not one of them. Oh, I'm sorry, I just don't like you. But I did go there for a year, so anyway. Well, anyway, thank you very much, board members who are serving on the committee, Quinn and Sandy, and other members on the committee. This has been quite the process in a year that's quite the year. So we're getting there. Thank you. Reports. We'll go first with K-12 principal report. Mrs. Mossman.
Okay, and make sure I get myself off mute here. Okay, we finished up our 7-12 quarter on October 30th. That was a total of 40 days. It was a longer quarter than most. And our end of trimester for K5, K6 actually will be November 24th with 55 days. Report cards were mailed last week for 7-12 and will be mailed, I think, the first week in December after we get back from Thanksgiving break. We have a staff book study with the topic of trauma-informed instruction, and this will be led by Christy Brinkerhoff. She led our workshops on trauma-informed teaching. We have 4 different books and 19 staff members that will be involved. This is a really good topic for us to explore further due to our current situation, as well as just children who need extra care for that, and teachers with skills. As you can see from the pictures, we had some staff scratching tickets. Just because you were fast, like the elementary team, doesn't mean you were better. The secondary ended up with more money, but we combine it. And I think it was, I don't have a complete total, but it was about $300. They weren't able to hold the school lottery scratch off at LC as in the past. So you just signed up and they sent you tickets. And Kevin Carpenter did all the final scratching. He said he'll never buy a lottery ticket ever because it was a lot of work getting them all cleaned up and ready to mail out. But we have some money for our school. We did conferences a little differently this year. We presented 3 options to parents virtually through a Google Meet, a phone call, or face-to-face. And I would say probably half of our elementary did either Google Meet or phone call. And a part of it was we couldn't have siblings in the room. We didn't want the pods to mix. And so if you came face-to-face, you could only bring the student who went to class in that room. All of our secondaries, except for a few, were either Google Meet or phone call as well. As far as sports, Sean already covered the limited fan attendance as per the governor's order, but 50 or less, and we'll know more about that after tomorrow's AD meeting. Girls basketball already started, and the boys will start on the 16th. The junior high boys are playing now, which began when their quarters, it's a little different, but about when their quarters change. And then cross country went to Pocatello, went to state and did well and came back safely. So that was a good event for us for sure. On the clubs and CTE, we have a junior high math counts. We've done it in the past, and Kevin Carpenter has agreed to be the coach. So we will see how that goes because they're going to do things a little differently. We're still exploring how that's going to look. We had two students, Jack Roberts and Nick Witten, who participated in the CREED LDE. And I talked to Kyle today, and I told him that my husband has his Green Hand Award, and we put it on the office wall just to kind of support FFA. And so hopefully the grandkids will see that and want to participate. But he said they did well. It was all done virtually, and they were going out of Moscow. HOSA is going to do their food bank collection, and the elementary will be helping them this year. ASB has a lot of things on their list for this year. We will start our coffee sales pretty soon. The senior letter, our first senior letter has been sent, and we're awaiting the senior letter back from the senior citizens, the real seniors. As far as a winter party, they're working on how they're going to navigate that. I think they're just going to, each class will have their own party at the high school level as well as the elementary. And one of the service projects they wanted to do was to make the blankets for maybe seniors, lap blankets or small blankets. And then the Big Brother, Big Sister program is really been different this year, but well received. Natalie has organized a journaling between the two, the bigs and the littles, and the kids can't wait to get their journals. They're very, very motivated to write back. And then they've been also doing some Google Meets with their individual kids, and it's gone very well. So we always learn out of this pandemic how to do things a little differently. And sometimes it's working out better. And we think we're going to keep some of these things that we're learning to do. The elementary had a harvest celebration. And as I went through the classrooms, it was really interesting. They were doing things like glow math with black lights and doing some engineering projects. We have a boy in the middle who has made a grain auger. His parents are pretty excited when he brought that back, and then just building things and doing a lot of things in a real different way. They're not combining, they're just doing their own focused academic kinds of things in a fun way. High school, we have a Veterans Day virtual assembly on Wednesday. Mr. Keith always has the senior government class do this, and they've been speaking with veterans, and I believe perhaps we'll be able to get that on Facebook so you can see it as well, and it'll be shared with K-12 students, and they will be creating like a cookie plate or something for each veteran. And I think today Mr. Keith said they're going to drive up to the parking lot and they'll be delivering those to the seniors. Then we have a lot of senior project programs that are planned for this fall. One student's topic is Anti-Traffic Coalition, and she has a presenter. Some of them are presenting virtually, some will be on campus, depending on our category. A self-defense class that will be taught by one of the seniors for high school girls. And there's also a suicide prevention presentation from Steve Button down in Lewiston. He will come up and do a couple of those. And then we have a junior senior student government scholarship program. It's a $10,000 scholarship. You have to be a junior or a senior in ASB. They'll be taking a test next week, and then the top ones will be sent to the State Department. And from there, they will choose students in the state. I can't remember how many go to Washington, D.C., but it's a virtual program they do in March. And if they get through that and they're selected to go to Washington, D.C. virtually, they will get their $10,000 scholarship. So we're pretty excited to see how that goes. And the last picture is Mr. Tiggs decided every week we make it face to face. He tries to do something to just celebrate that. And so Mr. Carpenter and Sean were serving hot chocolate to staff at the very end of the day before they went home for the weekend. So just to let the staff know, and we're just happy to be here and making sure that we try to stay healthy and together. And that's all I have, unless you have any other questions.
Thank you. Does board members have questions, comments? Well, regarding Tom's Green Hand Award, You can tell him the board was surprised that that long ago they even had such a thing.
1973.
Yeah. No, that's nice to hear. Thank you.
I'll add in just a quick shout out for Christina Brinkerhoff and the work that she's done. She's been a great addition. Their family has been a wonderful addition to our school district, and her expertise and her volunteer spirit. I just want to call that out. She's donated all of the time that she's doing for this book study, for the professional development that she did for our staff at the beginning of the year. It's just second to none. And I know she's listening in there. So thank you very much, Christy.
Yes,
We
thank
really
Thank
need,
you.
We'll consider that a pay it forward thing then.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready for superintendent report.
So I've been talking all night, and on these days when it looks like she made it. Let's see. She said thank you. So on these nights, I don't have a written report. Just want to make sure that you're aware of the athletics update that is coming through, and that really just fits with the governor's limitation of 50. That we're trying to do that. The White Pine League is considering, in cases where you might have up to 15 people on an individual basketball team, that we could get a waiver for a maximum of 60 people in the gym. The Public Health District has indicated that they will approve that, assuming there's a plan in place that has masks and the physical distancing. So what we would do is, for the 2 people for each player, that would be an X on the bleachers. And they would sit together to maximize distancing. We would put the away crowd, behind the away team, and then manage it that way. That I'm already in talks about how we'd have set game start times, because like if you've got a girls JV and then a girls varsity, you don't want people stacking up at the door waiting to get in for the girls varsity when JV's still playing. So what I would propose is actually starting JV games at 5:30 instead of 6. And then and starting varsity games at 7:30 on the dot regardless. So then what that would allow us to do is get any JV parents out of the building, and then the varsity parents would know they don't have to start piling up at the door. We won't start the game without them. It will start at 7:30 on the dot, and that 2 hours gives us time to do that. We're also talking about, because we're mixing communities, about having hometown fans come in one way and exit one way, and the visiting fans come in a certain way and exit a different way, to kind of prevent that mixing. Ultimately, in all the conversations about sports, to me, the most important thing is that the kids are allowed to play. So that's the first thing. These kids need something to do. It keeps them safer. It keeps them engaged. It keeps them active. And then after we've allowed the kids to play, if we can safely allow fans in, we've just got to be thoughtful about how many. I don't expect the governor to lift his order anytime soon. He's not going to want to jerk it around a bunch, and considering that cases still continue to grow, there's no appetite right now. If anything, it might get more strict as opposed, but I don't think he wants to make rapid changes. So at this point, that's what we have. That could change. We just don't know.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So does that mean, since you're limiting the number of people in concessions?
And my proposal is good that you brought it up. My proposal would be that with just that many, and the fact that people would just be coming to a single game, that in order to kind of lighten the load on some of the staff that we have, that we would just pause concessions during this time. People would just come in for really that hour and a half that is the game, and then they would be exiting it. And so it'll help with overall just mask wearing, because people won't be eating and drinking. And it'll just also it reduces janitorial need for cleanup. It means our kids don't have to hang out after the game to sweep the bleachers. And it's less mixing of communities and handling of money. So that would be my proposal, is to just pause the concessions as well. There's a few with the athletics. There are people that have purchased season pass, so we'll have to take a look at that and potentially reimburse. Or another option that I know some school districts are doing is using the season pass money to purchase for those people the Pixelot pass. Now I haven't fully explored that option, and I'd have to visit with Marcy more about that. Hopefully she's not rolling her eyes right now.
The what pass is that?
The NFHS, the National Federation Network, they have, so it's important for people to know, for $60 a year, you can get an annual pass and you can watch any game that we broadcast, which will be every game. You can also actually watch any game where someone else has that same system. I know Highland's getting it, Deary's getting it. We have it already. I'm not sure about Kendrick. Grangeville has it. A lot of the area schools have it. And so you would also be able to watch state tournament games, district tournaments, depending on where they're hosted, and all of our home events. You can also watch our music concerts. Our graduation will be streamed on Pixelot, and those will be free of charge. But games, they have to have the pass. And again, that's $60 a year. This year, because we installed it this year, we get approximately $20, depending on how many subscriptions are sold, of that returned back to us this year. So there is some of that money that comes back to the district athletic program. So.
Do our little cards get us into that?
So the IHSA card into the online? No.
Oh, come on. That's why we I'm on the board.
Yeah.
No, I'm teasing. Okay, thank you. You have anything else?
No.
Any questions, anyone, for Mr. Teagues on that? Okay, the next item is board reports, and this is just primarily about the convention that's taken place this week. I'll begin, and then you can add to. I just have 3 items. The first being the region meeting was held today at noon, and Polly and Carrie were on. I don't know if Sandy or Quinn were there. Just give you a quick update of that. We elected. We had to have some elections, and it's kind of complicated, but the outcome was Rebecca Warden is the chair for Region 2. And I'm the vice chair for Region 2, and appreciated Carrie nominating me for that at the board meeting. We discussed resolutions and bylaws. They're kind of important this year, I think, particularly the bylaws amendments. And if you have any questions about those, we could address those. As far as the convention goes, I don't know if everybody's been on the website. They have, but it's pretty easy. I think that our original plan was to have it here, but that doesn't really make a lot of sense right now. So each of us will individually attend from whatever location. If you're limited in some way and you need to have a place to come participate in the convention, we can take care of that here at the school as well. But we won't plan to come together to attend the convention at this point. If you have any questions, I got on this morning and just went to the tech room to see what it was like, which is a couple ISB staff members sitting there talking about what they have for breakfast or something at that point. But they anticipate more people might need that in the future. There's a tech room you can go to. You can also contact the AHOVA or whatever the platform is as far as tech support if you need any help. Right now, you have some convention highlights on your screen. Tomorrow morning will be the keynote speaker, Jennifer Yulie Wells, and she talks about mental health. She had mental health programs in connection with schools. It looks like a really good program. And then the closing keynote well, not closing, but the Wednesday keynote speaker is a man talking about, he has a book, I think, that supports, and he also, both these people will have breakout sessions so you can attend the keynote session, and then if you like it, you can actually get into the breakout room, because I don't think there's limits on the breakout rooms. So that looks like, I mean, everyone would rather be together, but since we can't be, even they have a walk around to go through the booths. And I entered a couple prize drawings today, so you can participate that way, just like a regular convention. Candy at all the booths, which really is a bummer. Especially some of those candy bars those architects give. I really like some of those. So that's one item. And then the last item is the business meeting. And I'll open that up again in just a minute. For business meeting, we need to decide how to do that.
Oh, look at that guy.
Yeah, I know. It must have been hard up for
So-
pictures.
Really quick with the business meeting, I am the person that will, like, I have the login to cast the vote. That requires me being with a board member in person, at least one. So my thought right now is that, I mean, the plan was that Ken would be with me. And then I'll let you keep talking. I just want to make sure.
Okay.
that's-
So how we cast that vote, we can do it a couple different ways. We can spend a while tonight going through each resolution and basically vote on them ahead of time and just cast the votes according to that. We can have as many board members who wish to participate at either here at the location where Sean and I will be, or at your various locations, and either text or
I think we could do like a group call.
a
is
group
what I
call
think.
type of
Yeah.
thing to get your votes. That would be another way to do it. So it's kind of up to you how you'd like to cast those votes. Anybody have comments or suggestions about any of those things, but particularly about how we vote for the board? This is on Thursday, the business session is. And I hope you'll attend some of the convention. There's some really great, we've tried to keep as much of the in-house trainers for a lot of the sessions. So, but there's some also business and associates of the ISBA who are presenting classes at the convention.
I can do either on Thursday, whether we want to do a call or if we want to talk about them tonight.
Okay, thank you, Polly.
Whichever.
Yeah, both of them work for me too.
I think it might be kind of fun to do it live if we're available. I know some, I mean, I don't know, Quinn, if you've got work to do right
I think I'll be
then, or-
available, but yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see what the weather brings.
Yeah. It might be kind of fun to gather a little bit as a group, and we could do it either like a Google Meet or a Zoom while there's this other Zoom going on.
We can handle that.
I think we'll make
Okay.
it work. If not, you can fire the tech director.
Okay. So let's, how about this? We'll leave it, we'll let Mr. Teagues know if you want to be here in person or if you want to be online, so we can make appropriate setup for a room for Thursday. And then we'll just have as many board members who are able to attend, either be online or here, and we'll do the business meeting that way. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Yep.
I guess if you didn't think you could, if something came up and you couldn't make it, you could certainly just go through the bylaw
Resolution.
and the other proposals, and you could just via email, make your wishes known, I think, too. If it came to that and you weren't able to.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. And take a look at the, just scrolling through some of the things here. You can, there is a board, or excuse me, an ISBA convention book, and there is a ISBA business meeting book that you can do online, or you can print them off if you like. They were in your emails. They're also on the website for ISBA, and I assume that you can get them somewhere in that AHOVA, or I'm not saying it right. HOVA, no A on it. HOVA platform. Anything you'd like to talk about as far as resolutions, bylaws? We can probably do that as we go through them on Thursday. But if you'd like any questions or anything tonight, we can also visit with you a little bit about that if you'd like to. We are getting past our normal time dismissal, so we probably don't want to go over each one. We've had some opportunities to do that. Anybody? Or any comments about the rest of the convention? This is kind of a weird situation. Everybody, the staff of the ISBA seems to be kind of like, man, I wish we weren't doing this.
Yeah.
But since we are doing it, we're going to do our best. I think they did really good going out and finding the right technology to put the convention on. The voting is, our voting is a weighted voting. And so they had to find a voting system that accounted for that and was able to get the results of the election out before, or the results of the voting on the resolutions out a little quicker than maybe our national election is getting out.
But one other thing from me, and I know I said it in an email too, but I'm very serious about it. If you have, this is what I would do at a normal school boards convention. If you have one that you would like me to, I have my list of ones that I've selected, but if there's one where you feel like, boy, it would be nice to just have Sean there, either on a separate call, so we could kind of talk, not in front of everybody. But if it was a specific topic that was important to you, I'm happy to join that one. And I can make myself available to answer any questions if you want to kind of participate in it too. That's really what, at all these school board conventions, that's what I'm there for, is to kind of have those. I only have one time that's set aside for the Superintendent's Association, but I think there's other meetings going on at that point. So I am open. If there's one you want me to attend with you, I would be happy to.
Another thing to note, there are these breakout sessions that are like social hours by topic. So there's one for small school districts, board members from small school districts. So basically, I think it was even small rural school districts.
Yeah.
And then there's one for board chairs or people interested in what board chairs do. And that would be across the different districts. There's one for like the huge districts. So you can pick and choose on those and sit in and converse with other board members from around the state, similar to if we were in person. Okay, if there's no other questions, I hope you'll at least take in a couple of the classes, and I know I've gone through, probably you have to, and checked off some of the ones you might want to attend. I suppose cool thing is if you get there and it's like really boring, you just hop out and go into another classroom. Whereas if you sit in the front in those rooms, and all of a sudden, you can't get out. So there's a benefit. If there's nothing else, that was the last thing on our agenda. Entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's something else.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you, Polly. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Carrie, second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? Thank you very much for your time and dedication to the district. And hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your small groups. Or your really huge families, however you manage it.